Hello everyone, I'm Al Gallagher the SideQuest Gamer here, and today we're going to look at a rather obscure Nintendo 64 title by the name of Mischief Makers. Chances are you probably have never heard of it. Just to clarify, it's a 2.5D side-scrolling platformer, and it's kind of a mix of Kirby 64, the Crystal Shards from Nintendo 64, Little Big Planet for the PlayStation 3, Wario Land Shake It, or the Shake Dimension as it's known in other regions of the world for the Nintendo Wii, and Tombi, a rare PS1 game that some may have heard of. The question is it any good? Well, let's take a look at it, because we've got quite a bit to talk about today. Mischief Makers is a 2.5D platformer developed by Treasure and published by Enix and Nintendo. Treasure previously developed a lot of games for the Sega Genesis, including the beloved Gunstar heroes, Dynamite Headdy, and Alien Soldier. This was of course before Enix merged with Square and became Square Enix, but to my surprise, this game received mediocre reviews upon its release. Well, with the exception of Nintendo Power calling it the greatest platformer since Super Mario World. While I totally disagree with that completely, since almost every aspect of Super Mario is better than Mischief Makers, and Mischief Makers did not have Yoshi, I will say that it has that Mario feel to it, with a few new things of its own. The story involves what I believe to be an intergalactic exploration duo composed of peacekeeping android Marina and the Professor. Their purposes for being on the Clancer home planet are unclear, but then the Professor is kidnapped by a bunch of renegade Clancers, part of the Great Empire/Evil Empire. So Marina sets off to rescue the Professor multiple times in the game, and yes, you rescue him and he gets kidnapped again, over and over. Why, you may ask? Well, the Emperor wants him for a somewhat shocking plot twist towards the end of the game, which I will not reveal. He sends out his idiot minions, who are actually superheroes known as Beta Sector, who are more interested in killing Marina and the Professor than actually getting the job done. Since the Emperor sent out a robot doppelganger to look like Marina, who terrorizes the Clancer home planet in order to trick Beta Sector into working for the Emperor himself. For a game rated E for everyone, this game sure has its fair share of sociopaths, whether it was intentional or not. But these sociopaths make pretty awesome boss battles in the game. The story is interesting because it does the Mario saves the princess concept, except that the gender roles are switched, which is kind of cool, but a little late in the game for 1998. But I hate to say it, it rips off Mega Man 5 in a sense, where an android saved its professor who was kidnapped by a robot, who was also an imposter, but in Mega Man 5, that imposter was posing as Proto Man. However, one thing worth noting is that this game does not take itself seriously. I mean, there are times when Marina initiates the boss battle, completely breaking the fourth wall. In instances such as when she's about to battle Mirko for the first time, he compliments her beauty, and she says that she's the cutest character in the game. And yes, she says, in the game. Sometimes the bosses themselves break the fourth wall, like when Marina asks whether the boss is the final boss in that area. He says, no, he's just a stage boss. While the story may be cliché at times, the fact that it doesn't take itself seriously adds a charm to it, kind of like Earthbound for the SNES. The gameplay involves grabbing objects and shaking them. It may sound stupid, but Treasure and Enix really made it work. I'm not lying when this can be an annoyance at times, but 98% of the time, it adds a flavor to the level design. Grab onto an object and shake it by tapping any of the directional buttons for something to happen, from warp stars opening up to blue, red, and occasionally the one per level yellow gem. Yellow gems are items that are optional to collect in the game, but if you want the secret ending or the whole ending, you have to collect them all, kind of like Jack the Precursor Legacy for the PS2, or the Crash Bandicoot trilogy for the PS1. But unlike those games, the yellow gems actually affect the length of the ending, including the normal ending. These yellow gems are sometimes as easy to collect as being right in front of you, and then there's the pain in the neck yellow gems that require lightning quick reflexes if you want any hope of getting it. World 2 was probably the most annoying set of levels to collect yellow gems on, especially the Hot Rush level, where you have to shake a Clanter head to activate a yellow gem, and then diagonal jump to the warp star and hoping that the platform at point B didn't blow to smithereens yet. I understand that this game is already easy enough, but making some of those yellow gems hard to reach on purpose can be headache-inducing sometimes. But out of the 52 collectible gems, there are only about 10 that are that hard to reach. Then there's the 3 that's sheer luck, like bouncing on the mole stage boss's stomach, and sometimes blue gems come out and sometimes net. And you won the lottery when a yellow gem comes out of its mouth. It's not that hard, but can be time consuming, especially if you're one of the unlucky people who have to keep on bouncing on him, hoping for the yellow gem to come out. And don't get me started on the world boss yellow gems. These should have been awarded for even beating the boss in the first place. But no, they made it so you were only awarded the yellow gem for not taking any damage. So far, I've only had trouble with the Phoenix and Migan Jr. bosses. Sasquatch was easy and Cerberus was tricky, but at least they gave you many options of attack and defense. The game also emphasizes a grading system, based on how quickly you beat a level. Get an overall A grade, and you'll unlock a new weakness for the final boss, which would result in an alternate ending, which would allow you to get the 53rd yellow gem. But it doesn't do anything different than getting the other 52 yellow gems, except for bragging rights. Unfortunately, since not many people heard of this game, that's like successfully hunting an echidna. In other words, those bragging rights wouldn't give you the respect in the gaming community, like getting all 201 golden bananas in Donkey Kong 64, or even beating Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link, which is widely considered to be the hardest Zelda game. The controls are decent. They definitely take some getting used to. With the oddly designed Nintendo 64 controller, you move Marina with the directional pad, press A to jump and B to grab. Tap on any of the directional buttons to shake an object while grabbing it. While grabbing a Clancer head, tap B while holding the directional pad in the direction you want to go to spring off the head. Press R to talk to Clancers with the speech bubbles, and to proceed through dialogue text. On the map screen, press L to visit a previously traversed world. Then, as for the seat buttons, tap any of the buttons depending on what direction you want to go in to rocket boost in that direction, which is essential if you want to complete a level quickly to get an A grade. The graphics didn't age quite well. Everything looks pixelated and occasionally colorless. To be honest, it looks more like Donkey Kong Country for the SNES. Don't get me wrong, the game looks good for its age, but only for its age. I still like how it looks, but it couldn't really hold a candle to Banjo-Kazooie or Star Fox 64. The music is not really memorable, but it's decent for the most part. It's very reminiscent of most Sega Genesis games, and since Treasure previously developed for the Sega Genesis, that would explain why. However, sometimes the music really fits the theme of the level very well, and I would say that the music is at least above average. The sound is worth noting too. There's some voice acting heard from the members of Bias Sector as well as the professor. Marina's signature quote, "Shake Shake," is a highlight, and every time Marina rescues the professor, he says, "Boy, am I glad to see you, Marina." Then she uppercuts him and he flies in the air in an odd comedic anime style. And then he yells, "Help me, Marina!" which he yells at least 9 times in the game, whether he really needs help or not. When the professor is being rescued, I'm not really sure if he's really glad he rescued her or if he has a romantic interest in his own creation due to the hearts on his eyes when being rescued. When the professor is rescued, I'm not sure if he has a romantic interest in his own creation or if he's just glad he rescued her. But he has hearts on his eyes, but let the fan theories decide that one. The level design may be unfair when attempting to collect the yellow gems, but if you're going from beginning to end, it's a really fun experience. Some levels require you from going to point A to point B, but there are other levels that require you to do certain objectives. 2 levels require you to rescue a Clancer's missing children. There was another where you had to complete a series of mini-games, which felt forced into the game, but that was just one level and it wasn't too bad. I did not like the level where you had to collect 13 ghosts in a pot. It was time-consuming, but that was also just one level. There's also a level towards the end where you have to fight 4 waves of enemies on a tarmac. It was just a blank concrete road with enemies. That's what I like to call a deadline level. A level which is lazily designed towards the end just to meet the deadline. But almost all of the levels have great level design that really adds to the fun factor of the game. My favorite stages are probably the vehicle stages. They were the most fun to play in. But like I said, the level design is good, and the most cleverly designed level is Aster's Maze. Sure, it may have been annoying, but it was really cleverly executed despite being annoying. So the levels are pretty easy if you're not collecting the yellow gems, but if you are, be sure to add 4 or 5 more hours of the game time in addition to the 4 hours it takes to beat the game. Overall, I would give this game an 85 out of 100. It's a really fun game even if you are collecting all of the gems. While not on my top 10 Nintendo 64 games, it's more than welcome to take a spot in my top 20. It's much better than Kirby 64 in my opinion, and although I can't recommend this game to everyone, I can highly recommend this game to fans of platformers or hardcore gamers in general. It's one of the most overlooked and underrated video games I've ever played, and I highly recommend Nintendo 64 collectors and gamers in general to give it a shot. It's unfortunately not on the Nintendo eShop or Virtual Console, but you can get a used copy on eBay for about 20 bucks. I would say it's worth the price. Heck, I would pay $10 more for it if I had to. Thank you all for watching this very special episode. Now normally, I don't really review 5th generation video games, but why not? They're just as classic as their previous generations. Very special thanks to Mr. Smokin' Ganja, one of my subscribers, for suggesting this game. Now, me being a fan of platformers, I gotta say, this game is pretty good, and like I said, it really deserves to be on the Virtual Console. I honestly can see why that it didn't really sell that well. I mean, it's a very impressive side-scroller, but like it cannot hold a candle to other Nintendo 64 titles like Ocarina of Time for The Legend of Zelda and Super Mario 64, of course. But I gotta say, Mischief Makers is definitely one of the best Nintendo 64 games out there, even if it's not into the 3rd dimension. Like I said, it does remind me of Tombi for the PS1, which was another forgotten classic on that system. Like I said, I like this game better than Kirby 64. It was just more of a satisfying experience. And again, thank you all for watching, and remember to stay awesome.